Hey, how's it going, everyone? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to this edition of the Happs Roundtable. Today, it's not broadcasters, it is the co-founders who will be my guest stars here. Really excited to welcome to the show here Mark Goldman, our CEO and co-founder, as well as David Newman, our fellow co-founder and head of programming and content here at Happs. Thanks to everyone joining in the comments as well. Doe, you're in first. Welcome back. Good to see you all today. Yassine, Lady Boss, Veda, welcome. Very excited to have you all here with us. Hope you're having a great day. And Mark, David, how you doing? Thanks for coming on.
Doing great, Peter. Thanks for having us.
Doing awesome, man. Although I have to say, I was just sitting through that countdown. I don't think there's been that much anticipation in my entire life previously. It's
I love that we have so many. I love that we have so many people in the comments. It's awesome.
It's amazing, and such an incredible group of people, and it's so much fun. This is fun. I should do this more often.
Absolutely.
I think Aaron Weinbaum says, I think the founders want more sports. They couldn't have gotten it more correctly. We do. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Happs, but we want more sports. Yeah, both.
Great.
Well, we'd love more sports on Happs too.
Absolutely, totally. But just
Aaron
in
is a
general,
great sports broadcaster. Yeah, has a good MMA show. Was on yesterday.
Taking this over, Peter. Do you like we're?
No, hey.
Sorry, I'm stepping on the moderators.
You guys run the true show around here, so get me off screen. Thanks,
come on, man.
Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite.
No. But listen, guys, let's just allow you to introduce yourselves to the community in your own words briefly. And this is really about the creation tale. We've gotten so many questions over the last week or two, and well before that, about really the whole backstory on how Happs got started. And I figured no better way to tell that story than invite in the primary protagonist. And so, thank you for joining and helping to, share the entire Genesis tale, so to speak, in your own words.
Gosh, it would have to start with you, Mark. I think.
Well, I think it starts with both of us, David. I mean,
right,
really.
But how did it start? It technically starts with me begging Mark to do a company with him. I wanted to do a company with Mark again because we had such a great time working together when we were at Current TV, who some of you may remember, a great company. We're doing some really innovative stuff, and Mark and I developed such a really great working relationship, and we were so productive together that when it ended, I really wanted to be in business with Mark again. And I kept bugging him every year or so. I'd say, isn't there something we can be doing? And Mark's like, no, I don't like the market conditions for this. I don't like the business conditions for that. I don't see the business model that works. And then one day, either I wore him down or market conditions changed sufficiently enough that he finally said, you know what, I think we ought to do something.
He wore me down. He wore me down, definitely.
So we have David to blame for all this.
It's a traditional Hollywood story, just one person nagging another until they finally relent.
Yeah, I finally gave in. It's like I can't take any more of this. But no, David's very kind to say it that way. The feeling was absolutely mutual. We had a phenomenal time at Current, going all over the world, launching television networks, meeting the most incredible people, giving voice to all sorts of next generation creators. And, when Current was ultimately sold, we absolutely wanted to do that together again. And so it's truly a dream come true to have created this platform and to have the opportunity to collaborate with David again, and now to add Drew into that mix with his product and tech expertise has been phenomenal, and obviously expanding the team out to you guys, to Peter and Pablo and Adam and Brett and Mikey, and so many incredible folks that it's really been a blast. So
Exactly. And I think on another level, sort of philosophically, one of the things that I had spoken to Mark about that was on my mind was that I felt like when we began, we started talking about news in general and how news kind of had dropped the ball on a lot of big stories. You know, if you think about it, in the 21st century, there have been, a few major stories. 9/11 would be one. The election of Donald Trump would be another. The Iraq War would be another. And if you think of those stories, the mainstream media, the big media companies, and there are a lot of smart people that work at those big media companies, got it all wrong. They didn't anticipate it. They didn't interpret it correctly. They seemed to be caught unawares on these stories. And we thought, and BLM would be another one of those stories, actually, be a fourth. And we thought, one of the reasons is that you just have too much concentration of power and perspective in the hands of too few individuals and companies. And so what could we do to bust that open and to democratize that process and to give more people a chance to share their perspectives and their points of view? Because I was convinced if you had a more democratic, small d media, then you would have more perspectives and you wouldn't be caught by surprise at these massive trends in news that seemed to catch the gatekeepers by surprise. That was part of what was going on in my head.
Well, and absolutely, and for those of you who don't know, I mean, David is truly, a pioneer, and I can say it, a legend in the news space. He innovated a model originally at Channel One of a much more first person and authentic form of storytelling, which he did with some of the people who have become the greatest storytellers of our time, and it really changed the dynamic of how news is covered, and made it much less people going to report on a subject and much more people going to put themselves into a story. And what David and I wanted to do is to carry on that idea and allow everybody to really now be part of the process of telling what's going on out in the world, as opposed to that being limited by a handful of big corporations who were telling just the stories they wanted to tell and only in the way they wanted to tell them. And we really felt that technology had now evolved to a point where those restrictions and those barriers didn't need to be there anymore, and that it was time to empower all of those voices and all of those stories to be told. And so that was the original origin of Happs, and obviously it's evolved into a much broader form of storytelling, where now we have people telling stories not just around news and current events, but we have people telling stories around their areas of interest and expertise, everything from music to cooking, to wellness, to sports, to business, etc. And really giving people the tools to do that, and giving people the tools to do that in a way that's collaborative, because these broadcasts become so much more compelling when you're able to do it, with others, and collaborate on the broadcast, than when you try and do it, yourself and limit the story.
Absolutely. I'm really intrigued that we're getting a lot of great comments. They are flooding in. Sorry if we can't.
I don't know how you can follow all of this. Like, it's amazing.
Welcome to my world, Mark. This is what happens when I'm doing my own show, and I'm just like, wow, you get a new appreciation for anchors and hosts that do it really well. Like Alex Mahajer, who I saw referenced there. He's brilliant at it.
Yeah, I have to say, to me, the most compelling broadcasts by far on Happs are done by the people who who have that ability to really engage and connect with the audience and with the comments that are coming through. It just makes it a so much more compelling and rich experience when somebody's able to do that. So my hat's off to you, David. I certainly have a lot to learn in that regard.
No, me too. Believe me.
Yeah, there's no perfect science to how to manage all of the comments here, but just want to thank you all for tuning in, and we will have a few minutes for questions towards the end. One thing I wanted to ask, and that's come up already in the comments, is how was the shift made from a news-oriented brand, right, a media company, to this next generation of Happs that most of the people in the comments here are very familiar with. Mark, like you mentioned, content creators, collaborating on tons of different types of genres, far beyond news and current events.
I would love to chime in before Mark's really the person to answer this, but I have a story point that I will interject into that process.
Please.
Because we were doing some really cool news stories in our alpha phase of Happs. Some stuff I'll be as proud as anything I've done in my career. We had our contributor in Syria, Muhammad, who was doing these amazing stories about what was happening with refugees inside Syria. We had just all sorts of enterprising, interesting, compelling journalism coming from Venezuela, Chile, China, Thailand, just amazing stories with really talented and promising broadcasters. And I think it was fantastic. But very early on in that process, I was saying to Mark, our vision is actually much bigger than this. It's great that we're giving these people the opportunity to do this and bring us some of these stories. But these tools that we have in our back office that are all for ourselves, these amazing tools that allow you to switch cameras and add graphics and all that kind of stuff. I don't think we'll have fulfilled our vision for this unless we give all these tools away to everybody and let everyone use them for free. That would be a change the world thing. So even though we were making some really good content that I'm really proud of, we felt like we had a mission that was bigger than that. And we felt that from the beginning. So when Mark would turn to me and say, well, we're a scrappy startup, where do we go next? I'd be like, Mark, we got to figure out a way to get these tools, these amazing tools that Adam and Brett and our incredible tech team under Drew's leadership have created. We got to blow those out to everybody. So that was a little piece of the story. And then I'll flip it over to Mark, who can talk about, as CEO, how he took that and then really piloted our shift.
Sure. And I just want to shout out to, speaking of international journalists, Mariana Cohn in the audience from Nigeria. We've really appreciated your reporting and storytelling across, the continent for, the last few months. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks to everyone who's been with us on this journey throughout all of the phases. We're certainly not done yet. And Mark, I'll toss it over to you to talk about this transition from alpha to beta.
Yeah, and just before we do, I do want to send my heartfelt, condolences to Marianne. We know what you've been going through over the past month, and you're very much in our thoughts and in our prayers. So it's really really heartening to see you, here right now, and we hope to see you back broadcasting on Happs soon because we miss you. It's so interesting, and Marianne's a perfect example of it. I'm just, what I love is seeing all of the people in this comment section and a truly global perspective represented here. And, going back to what David was saying, journalism and covering what's happening in the world is still very much part of our plans at Happs. What we want to do is we want to see people, talking about the important issues and covering the important stories all over the world. And when I say all over the world, I literally mean in every country in the world, down to every city and small province in the world. The power of that is what we're really going for ultimately with Happs. But just to bring that back to what David was saying, we actually realized that even that is thinking too small. That we were thinking too much like a media company. And how do we use these incredible tools that have been built for our purposes to build a media brand and to build a following for Happs? Where what we came to realize, and to David's credit, he was the first person who really started pushing for this, was that the much bigger idea was to think like a technology company, not like a media company, and to give these capabilities to everyone and empower everyone to tell their stories and to connect with one another and to share their experiences, and to bring that capability and that understanding, to every part of the world and every type of storyteller all over the world. And that's when when we realized we got to think bigger than that. Let's really turn this into a change the world platform. Let's not do that just through journalism, but let's do that through every form of storytelling and empowering every form of storytelling. And that's what we've now embarked on with this next iteration and generation of Happs. And we think we're onto something much, much bigger and much, much more impactful in the world with the course that we're on now.
Peter, I see this comment from Hannah at Vienna, and she says, I don't trust fake news, mainstream, so it's awesome to hear real stories, news from real people in the real world, showing real stuff. I will tell you, I had a mentor. One of my mentors when I was at Channel 1 was this extremely talented producer named Mitchell Koss, and he ended up working with us at Current, and now he works at NBC. And he's Mark called me a legend, which is very kind and very sweet, but an exaggeration. Mitch actually is a legend. And he used to quote this John le Carré quote, which is the really shrewd CIA guy in le Carré's novels would say, I don't want to read the report. Give me the raw intel. Show me the raw intel. And that was our vision for what Happs can be, is the raw intel. You know what? Because you know what? That report, it missed the Donald Trump election. It missed Black Lives Matter. It missed the Iraq War. It missed 9/11. Show me the raw intel. Let's go deeper. Let's go more authentically to the sources of information, and let's start blowing this open. And I'm not trashing the big media companies. They do what they do very well, and they perform a service. But I think we've all recognized where they're limited, and we have to be the solution. What are we doing? And that's one of the reasons Happs is here. And I see so many people that share our enthusiasm and our vision. And under Mark's leadership, this is actually happening, which is terrifically exciting for me to be a part of.
I'll jump in and trash the traditional media companies. I think they're completely broken at this point. I think their news product is completely broken, because at some point they had a requirement to chase ratings in order to financially support their news operations through advertising. And it changed the whole dynamic of the news that they were producing. And I think it's fundamentally broken. And that's a huge problem for society. So I'm happy to jump in and say, I don't think it works at this point. There's a better model. And I do hope that we play a significant role in changing that. And it's why we've set up this structure that we have, where the viewers and the community support the broadcasters directly. We hope that everybody will get on board with that. We hope that they'll support journalists who are doing incredible work and important reporting. And we also hope they'll support artists and others who are doing equally as incredible work and deserve to be supported financially for their efforts. So I do believe the system is broken, and I do believe we have the opportunity to provide a solution to that. But it depends on this community to really get behind it and to allow us to cover all of these stories, to a level that's ubiquitous, so that people do start to look at Happs as the source and the solution. That's what we got to get to.
Mark, you're sorry. You're so right, Mark, and I think you are. I think you are absolutely right. And you mentioned something which I failed to mention, which is that the ability of these people to monetize the audience and to get support for the journalism they're doing, and for the discussions they're having, and for the teaching that they're sharing, and all the other things that are happening on this platform, is such a game changer. And it just makes me feel good about going to work every day as a part of Happs, because I think that's the way to change the system. You want to change the system, change the way the money flows. That's a change to the system. And that's what
no question.
That's what is so exciting. I remember I worked for a short while for Walter Isaacson, who some of you may have heard of. And I remember him telling me 20 years ago, he was watching print journalism crumble to the ground. And he said, the solution, which I keep trying to campaign about, is micropayments, is figuring out ways that people could read an article and pay 10 cents for it. And the industry just never adopted that model. Well, I think here we are. It's 20 years later, but Happs has basically created a micropayment system. And at any kind of scale, that can be a game changer. And I'm so enthusiastic about that. I know that I've opened my wallet for journalists and contributors on this platform that I think are doing a great job and are telling stories that need to be told and are sharing perspectives that I appreciate being shared. And I love that we're empowering people to vote with their pocketbook about getting more of that value.
Yeah. Great points. Good question here. How has Happs made the transition to incorporate so many broadcasters or scopers from the Periscope community, right, as that platform has shut down? A couple questions about this from the comments. David, I'd love to ask you this, or direct it towards you in particular, due to your kind of specialization here.
What's the question? I mean that very sincerely. I'm not sure what
you're asking.
How have
we incorporated, actually there's one that's even more blunt. Has the influx of Periscopers been good or bad for Happs, right?
Well, I think it's been great for Happs. I think it's been great because we've had all sorts of people that we would not have had part of the Happs family who came to us from Periscope. The challenge that is presented by some of the Periscopers who came over is there's not an entire, if this was a Venn diagram of community guidelines, of the two platforms, there is not a complete overlap of what those two platforms are about and what the guidelines and rules are. And from what I understand anecdotally, Periscope had been in extreme low maintenance mode by Twitter for quite a long time. And so there was a lot of, it was definitely a very, shall we say, libertarian ethos there. And it was sort of almost letting anybody do anything and say anything and so forth. We created Happs with a different philosophy than what was originally created on Periscope. And we created it in the context of different challenges to society. And one of the big challenges is just misinformation, actual, factual misinformation, which has consequences. And I think everybody kind of learned that, and misinformation is a problem everywhere. Misinformation was a problem when the Minneapolis Police Department put out a release when George Floyd first died saying, he was resisting arrest and he was having a medical incident. They left out the whole part of that, what we now can say is of killing him. So the truth is, misinformation is, and we felt sort of ethically, we can't make the problem worse. We didn't actually create Happs to make the world a worse place. And so we have a philosophy about misinformation. We are extremely tolerant of very diverse points of views, provided they're not hate speech and things that most reasonable people would accept as not okay. We're not trying to tell people how to think, and we're not trying to take anybody's First Amendment away, but we want to create an environment here at Happs that's conducive to a civil exchange of ideas, and we don't want to become a kind of hotbed of factual misinformation and conspiracy theories that sort of range off into the absolute crazy. If you really believe the earth is flat, we're not trying to tell you what you should believe. But in our world, that's misinformation, and it's just, unsubstantiated, and we don't want to be the platform for that. So, it's like my friends at Burning Man say, it's like, we're not telling you what to do. We're just telling you that this is the set of rules we have if you want to be at Burning Man. And if you don't like our rules, is what they say at the end of the Burning Man rule list, they say, we invite you to start your own event. And that's our philosophy too. We're not, so I think that some Periscopers have been frustrated because they come to Happs and they're like, nobody's ever sort of written them a note and said, you know what, you just actually stated some things that are categorically false. And, there's kind of implications for society if you do so. And if we sort of become a center for this. And so we just don't want to be that. So that's been the challenge for us. But I would say overwhelmingly, we've benefited from Periscope, and we've been delighted to be the haven, the asylum, the source of asylum for Periscopers who have something to say, who want to do something constructive. And I'm so delighted Happs has been a platform where they can continue to do what they're doing to add to society in a positive way.
Well said. Well said. I know we have actually a few interesting videos that we could cut to and show people a little bit what alpha phase Happs looks like. Some of these, reports from around the world, for example. Are you guys interested in talking about any of these in particular? I think we're queuing one up. Here we go.
F-16s and in rockets now. This is live over the road at the moment. Rocket attack on the city. Bombs right there, which is
Mark, doesn't that make you feel proud when you see that stuff?
Sure does. Sure does. And there's many examples of that we did in the first iteration of Happs, and I think there's multiple examples that are now happening on this new iteration of Happs. I was very proud to see some of the reporting yesterday from Minneapolis, and I hope that's a sign of much more of this to come, for sure.
Yeah, it was, Oren Rosenfeld. I mean, he's just an example of like a terrific journalist out there, putting himself in harm's way for the right reasons, and bringing truth and reality and real reporting to the world. And wouldn't it be cool? My dream would be 20 years from now, we look back at Happs and we say that so many people got their start here, got their voice here, got to build their audiences here, got to build a way to make a living here. This is our dream. Our dream is for the people in our community.
I was just thinking that I can't wait until we cross the threshold where Oren doesn't have to pitch, mainstream media companies to get hired to go cover a story. He can go out and broadcast it himself on Happs and earn a living, a very good living doing so. Boy, I can't wait for that day.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I fantasize about, Mark and Peter, is I look at local news, which is atrophying so many places. So many small town newspapers have shut down. It's harder and harder for local news to operate in the way that it used to. But Happs presents a whole new model and a whole new platform and set of tools and set of ways to monetize that I think could be a game changer for smaller communities where the only infrastructure you need is the Happs platform and your mobile phone, and you can create a system of news gathering.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
And I think one of the most, amazing things about Happs is you don't need to edit it. You don't need to just take us there. Just allow all of us to share in the experience along with you and help to put some framework and some context around that experience, and the experience will speak for itself. And I think that's a much more powerful form of storytelling than what we're currently getting through the media and also through other platforms that are more produced in nature.
Exactly.
Right.
Raw intel.
Right. An interesting question from Lady Boss. Would you ever consider breaking Happs into separate platforms, one social and one news broadcasting? So that's an interesting one. Haven't heard that before.
Let Mark take that one.
It's a really interesting question. I honestly can't say that I've thought about that, and I don't have a thoughtful response for that. So I'm going to give that some thought and maybe answer that on a future roundtable that we participate on. It's a fantastic question. I appreciate it. You stumped the panel on that one.
I could see, we hope to continue to grow and grow. And I could certainly see a time where it gets so unwieldy that you really want the buckets to be, some giant buckets to help you, taxonomize our content.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I agree with that. And we've certainly thought about that. But I guess the issue that I'm saying I haven't really thought about and I want to give a thoughtful response to is this notion of needing to separate social from the news element. I believe that one of the most powerful elements of Happs actually is the social nature of it, and that applies just as much to news and journalism as it does to any other content category. The fact that somebody could be on the ground, reporting on a news subject, and other people can join the broadcast who could give perspective on what the story is and what's happening. Let's say a constitutional lawyer comes in and weighs in on what's happening, or somebody's broadcasting a rocket launch and and we get an expert in space travel who comes on and joins that. And then the community, through these incredible questions that are being asked in the comment stream, bring their knowledge and insight and perspective into it. I think that's where this is all headed. You know, and our notion of news as this pre-produced precious product that has to be controlled and managed to that degree, I think that's going to evolve and change. And I think there's a lot of power in this model that we're building. And so the issue that I was struggling with is this notion of separating social from news. I do understand where the question comes from, and I do believe there's some legitimacy to the idea of that separation. But I also see a lot of power in the way it's currently being done on Happs.
Great. Any other questions from the audience here? Please feel free to ask. We have a few minutes left with David Newman and Mark Goldman, 2 out of the 3 co-founders of Happs. Unfortunately, Drew Shepard, our head of product, could not make it today because he's too busy. But
he's too busy building the product.
I know, he's too busy helping to continue to improve the platform and add in all sorts of, you know, improvements for features to performance, all sorts of good stuff coming up.
Ian McLaughlin wants to know.
And that's a whole nother broadcast.
Burning Man stories. Ian, you should have a broadcast and invite David in.
We may need to be chemically altered for that broadcast too. So
that really is true. I will give you a semi-serious answer though to your question, Ian, which is that in some ways Burning Man really directly inspired both current TV and Happs, because the concept with, you know, Burning Man is that you create this community that's open to everyone and everyone can come and contribute something, but there's a set of rules and principles that guide everything. And so there's sort of a framework, and you can come in within that framework and philosophy and you can just do your own thing and shine and excel and create and so forth. But I was inspired by the way they created an environment that was conducive to the creation of really cool art and really cool experiences. So that's a terribly boring answer to your question. But I honestly, I don't think there would have been a current TV in its configuration that it happened without Burning Man, without having the Burning Man experience. And then the current experience was kind of the early 1.0 of what we're trying to do with Happs. Except at that time, there weren't mobile phone cameras when we began Happs. And in fact, live streaming was extremely new, and it was only extremely recently that you could even do it really in video live streaming because of where the internet was at that time. But yeah, no, Burning Man's been an inspiration. And on another broadcast, we'll tell you lots of Burning Man stories.
Have a good question for you, David. Can David Newman start giving tutorials on how to interview guests, interview people properly, professionally? Yeah, very interesting. Lots of fans here of your broadcast series getting started, by the way.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you so much. You know what's funny, Helen? If I've gotten any better at interviewing, I think it's because as I've gotten older, and I was a late bloomer on this, I've just gotten better at listening. You know, it drives me nuts sometimes.
What did you say?
It drives me nuts. It drives me nuts sometimes when I see major, you know, journalists and doing interviews, and they're just not listening at all to what the person is saying. They're just like marching right on to their next question, or they're not reacting to obvious subtext in it. And it's made a lot of television news for me unwatchable because nobody's listening to each other. They're just all making speeches. I mean, and I'd say, you know, to be blunt, like Fox and MSNBC, there's a lot of that. Even though they're diametrically opposed, what they have in common is no one's actually listening to the questions and no one's actually answering the questions. and
All
you know,
talking
it's just
points.
it's a series of talking points. And that's when I got very disillusioned when I was working in mainstream news, is that I was like, I was seeing pundits come on who were just reciting talking points from their team, right? You know, whether it was a Democrat or a Republican or whatever. And they would just literally just recite talking points, never answer a question, never engage, never be reasonable, never. And it's just a waste of my time. We had no other choice before, but now, because of social media platforms, hey, we got lots of alternatives, and I'm glad there's so much enthusiasm for it here at Happs.
Right. One final question before we're out of time. How did the name Happs come about? We've gotten a couple of these actually in the comments today. Who wants to take
Hey,
that
David,
one?
I have a feeling that something happened because you're echoing again.
I shouldn't be echoing. That's weird. I'm sorry about that. I hope that's not happening for the audience. I'm not actually hearing it. So usually we haven't had that kind of problem. Weird.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. There, I hear an echo.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what to do about that. I'm not sure. Let me try turning down this.
People are saying Peter is echoing.
All right, David is not the one echoing. No echo in Brighton. I love it. That could be a title. That's like a title of a book. No echo in Brighton. I want to write that one, Carolyn, Diane. So wait a minute. We're back to our question. Where did the Happs name come about? Mark, I've forgotten. Was that a heavenly thing? I can't remember who came up with it.
That was a heavenly brainstorm. Absolutely. We have a absolutely wonderful marketing and branding firm that we worked with, for years. They worked with us at Current, and they helped us with the formation of Happs, the logo, and other branding elements. And they came up with the name based on the concept, what's happening. And so that's just a short derivation of what's happening. And our goal, obviously, is for you to be able to come to Happs and very quickly connect with what's happening in the world and with people all over the world who are talking about interesting things and sharing important and interesting stories. So that's the genesis of Happs. And kind of to that end, Peter, I before we call it quits, I am going to get up on my soapbox for a second and just, I so often get asked, from this amazing community that has formed at Happs already, what can be done to help? And, there's really one very simple answer to that. The power of this platform is in the ubiquity of the content and the people who are broadcasting on it. Happs becomes impactful in the world, and all of the broadcasters get their voices heard and understood when we get to ubiquity. So the more everybody here can help bring interesting and respectful and compelling voices onto this platform, both as broadcasters and as guests, the faster we'll get to that place, and the better it will be for everybody involved. And so I'm going to, at the risk of being on a soapbox, I am going to put in a passion plea for everybody to help with that, and to get as many amazing quality broadcasters and voices involved in this platform as quickly as you possibly can, because that's when this thing will really start to have an impact in the world.
Amen. By the way, more comments about Happs. I'm a child of the 70s, and what's the Happs was like something you'd hear at school, and it's kind of gone out of vogue as an expression. So it's almost like a retro word, like groovy or something like that. And we just immediately liked it. It is ironic that our branding part partners, Heavenly, who are just fantastic people and extremely talented. They're British. I didn't even realize, is that even a British expression? I think of it as extremely American. So maybe they're just so worldly that they speak Americanese as well.
You're asking the wrong person. I guess you're asking the viewers here.
No, I was looking at Mark, just saying, yeah. Walter K says, Happs is groovy, man.
Haven't heard it in Brighton.
Haven't heard in Brighton. Exactly.
By the way, there's so many people in this, in this broadcast today and in the comments, and so many great comments and questions. I really feel totally derelict in first of all not saying hi to everybody, but also responding to each and every person. I will certainly go back and look for any questions that were addressed to me and try to respond to them. But it's awesome, and at the same time somewhat overwhelming, the number of people here and the questions that are and comments that are being shared.
Yeah, it's fun. It's really fun to see so many names, so many people, so many nice, interesting, smart people that are in this community, and we appreciate the goodwill very much. It makes us feel good that you guys know who we are and are supporting what we're all trying to do here, what we're trying to accomplish for the world.
Exactly. Right on. Any final words, or I should say additional final remarks you guys would love to leave the community with right now, besides tell your friends?
Tell your friends is always good. Absolutely. And also, your friends who we've created something that's really easy for people to participate with. And, let's get out there and sort of spread the word about what this technology can do for people and how they can have a little part in, in making the world a better place through sharing their perspectives and their stories.
Well, and not to get too corny, but look, we're also just incredibly humbled and appreciative of everybody who's part of this community and the way they've rallied around, what we're trying to do with Happs and gotten on board with the vision and added so much already that expanded beyond our vision and wildest dreams of what this platform could be. So, we couldn't be more excited about where we're headed and what's to come. And we're very thankful of everybody who's involved.
Amen. And Doe Darling has a funny major question. Do Mark and David have Happs merch yet? I want you to know, for the record, I have no Happs merch because Peter and Pablo have declared that the merch first goes to the winners of the contest, and therefore we've seen bupkis. We have absolutely no. I don't have a mug. I don't have a T-shirt. I don't have a sweatshirt. Otherwise, I'd be wearing it.
Neither do I. All right.
That stuff looks. So good. Look at me. I've got a Zanku.
And by the way,
I've got a Zanku chicken glass. That's what I've got.
And by the way, we have officially won an award at Happs, our first award. The startup that went the longest before producing any merch in the history of startups.
I wonder if there's a place for us in the
proud of that.
Yeah, that's really impressive. But so it's true to the spirit of our relationship with our community. The community gets the merch first, and then we get the leftovers. I hope there's a medium hoodie left, or I'm going to be bummed.
We'll see, David. We'll see.
I'll climb through the boxes after this broadcast and let you know.
Stay on good behavior.
Exactly.
Oh,
therefore, I have zero chance. Yikes.
Well, this was great, guys. Thank you so much for coming on for this special edition, and thanks to everyone in the audience for all of your comments and questions, and for spending part of your day with us wherever you are in the world. We're really grateful to have you with us on this journey.
Thank you
Amen.
all.
Agreed. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Cheers, guys.
Have a great day out there. See you soon, everyone.